This is Dan Ferrisi, editor of Sound and Communications Magazine. Happy to be joined this afternoon by David Chiappini, who is Pro AV Working Group Chair of the AIMS Alliance. Thanks so much for joining me, David.
Glad to be here.
So next week, very exciting, we're going to be having AIMS TechFest 2021, and I obviously want to talk all about that. But first, I'd like to talk a bit more broadly about the AIMS Alliance and the IPMX protocol for people who may not be fully familiar with it or fully up to date. Can you talk about the good work of the AIMS Alliance and in particular the IPMX protocol and why people in the commercial AV industry should be focused on this?
Sure. So AIMS original work really was bringing to broadcast this standard surrounding SMPTE 2110 and evangelizing it. They didn't do it alone. They were part of a group of companies, but they were the ones who were getting the message out to the people. And that's really AIMS's mission, is public education in support of open standards. And so with that technology and a large number of companies that contributed to it, we all thought that, who else needs a video over IP or audio video over IP standard? Pro AV needs one. And so we decided that we could, taking a very battle-hardened proven technology, introduce it into Pro AV with some customizations to make it Pro AV centric, like the addition of protected content support. Broadcast doesn't care for it, but obviously in Pro AV, it's an essential add-on. Support for HDMI and asynchronous sources, like a independent PC is considered an asynchronous source. In a broadcast studio, everything will be gen locked together, but in a lot of Pro AV installs, they don't have that impact or that effect. So all the equipment doesn't really have the same timing as everyone else. That requires a different level of timing synchronization built in. So with all of the experts at AIMS and the related companies, the organizations that are also participating, we decided to take on the IPMX initiative, which is bringing this open standards-based method to Pro AV, for AV over IP. It's a lot of letters.
So what has the response been so far? Obviously, as you say, you're not working alone, you're working in conjunction with partners and allies, but are you seeing the kind of embrace of open standards of IPMX that you would have expected, that you would have wanted? Are you seeing reluctance within the industry? What is the temperature that you're taking right now of the appetite for this?
So I have to say that adoption is definitely picking up momentum as we would have expected. When we started, there was a lot that was uncertain. And as uncertainty starts, people say, okay, I like open standards, but what does that mean? And will there be pickup? And so over the last 2 years, we've been really focused at converging, getting things defined, really highlighting how we're going to do certain things. And with all of that converging, we now see a lot of people starting to really embrace this idea of open standards, and I can't deny that there's momentum building. We had an event with one of our partners March 1st, and you can absolutely tell that there's way more interest than there was even, let's say, 6 months ago in the pickup of this. So I think that we're very much aligned to see some really growing momentum for the rest of this year, right behind IPMX.
It's probably difficult to limit it to one, but if you were to boil down the most important benefit that our industry could realize by embracing open standards, be it a benefit for integrators, for end user technology managers, for whomever, is there something that you would say is the single strongest argument for why our industry needs to be embracing open standards?
Well, there's a bunch, but I guess the one that really resonates with me is the fact that open standards really allow technologies to propel themselves forwards. And if we look at history and we look at where open standards have come into a non-standard market, those markets have always exploded with the introduction of the open standard. And if you think about it, it makes sense. People like one of the very simple examples, it's not even tech, is the railway car. So railway cars were not standard. Every company built their own. Then when I wanted to take that railway car and put it on a truck, sometimes it would fit. I'd have to have specific types of trains. I couldn't really interchange between one freight train and another. And then at one point, they decided this enough is enough. I can't stack these. I can't make neat piles. Let's standardize. And all of a sudden, the building of the crates got better and better. They were way more resilient. They lasted longer. They were interchangeable. I moved them from ship to train to truck. Everything is standard in the connections and the hookup. And so that market just propels itself forward, and it really takes off because they're no longer all trying to figure out, how do I build a better box? Because really the value wasn't in building the box, it was making it easier and better to use. And that's what helped it take off. You see, in Pro AV today, there are at least 100 companies, and I'm not exaggerating, that have taken the time to put together their own AV over IP standard. That means it's 100 people who figured out, how do I transport, how do I control, how do I manage? Instead, if all of that was standardized, and so people wouldn't put R&D dollars towards that, they would implement the standard and then use all that extra value add on top to go and make a better product, an easier to use product, or a higher quality product, or whatever way they wanted to add that value. But if the value is added, it's not used to keep rebuilding the same thing with 100 companies. That's what would really propel forward, you know, the technology. And AV over IP, which is already growing well on its own, would really just explode.
Right. I don't like to editorialize, but it's a really compelling value proposition. I think it's something people need to be aware of and need to consider those facts. Now, something else about value I want to talk about is the value people are going to get from taking part in TechFest 2021 next week. Can you tell people why they should be excited about it, what exactly it is, and to whom it's targeted?
So we're doing, it's an AIMS-driven event, and we're doing two different AIMS groups that got together, our Pro Audio Working Group and our Pro AV Working Group. The Pro Audio Group is doing a remote production day. That's on the 10th. And on the 9th, it's the Pro AV Day, where we're talking all about IPMX. We have 4 very interesting presentations that are happening that day, which people should drop in and listen into, because they really, really are well done. I just finished auditing 2 of them myself today, so I was really happy with the way that they came out. Very educational, and there's also lots of experts that will be on hand in different virtual rooms for people to come in and ask their questions. We've got a basic IPMX room, so for people who don't know too much that want to come in strictly to learn, an advanced room for people who have much more involved questions because they've been starting to work with it and they may want some expert feedback. We've got an NMOS room, and NMOS is the part of the standard that is the software control of IPMX, so a pure software-based room. And we've got a live demonstration that you can go in and ask someone to show you a live demo of IPMX working and doing AV over IP in both hardware and software. So there's a lot of interesting things that are going on, high education value, and a lot of these people from AIMS are all motivated to really get IPMX education out there. So it's a great place to just drop in and ask a few questions, listen to some really well-prepared presentations from experts. And, you know, it's 4 hours in the middle of the day from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it's free. So please drop in, have a listen, give us your commentary, and maybe you'll find out that this really is something that is going to drive the value story for you, and is something you really want to know more about. And this is a great place to start.
So speaking of dropping in, obviously, as you say, it's a free program, but I assume one has to register or be on the list in some way. Is there anything people need to do whose appetite might now have been whetted to make sure that they're taking part?
Sure. Google AIMS Alliance, and you'll be able to get to our website and register through that. And of course, that is the only criteria is you need to register to get yourself in. And then after that, you'll be able to participate in any of the activities, hop in and out, show up only for the portion that you want. And like I said, drop into the rooms and ask a few questions, or just listen into the other ones, give you a good idea of who else is motivated and interested in this.
Well, thank you very much, David. I can't wait to talk to you soon for the latest iterations, the latest news about the IPMX protocol and what AIMS is doing. And I look forward to seeing you face to face, hopefully in the next several months when we're out of this COVID universe.
I hope so, Dan. And I look forward to seeing you in person too.
All right. Well, thank you very much, David Chiappini, who is Pro AV Working Group Chair of the AIMS Alliance. This has been Dan Ferrisi, Editor of Sound and Communications. Thanks so much for joining me once again.